Welcome to Bledsoe Said So, guys. I know I always say this, but I really mean it. We have a very special guest tonight, my friend Paul Citarella, the Executive Vice President of the Monroe Institute and the Chief Technology Officer. Are you hearing my cat meow, Paul?
I did, yeah.
Oh,
Yep,
God.
that's great.
I'm sorry about that. But before we get into our conversation tonight, I just want to mention to you guys about Contact Modalities XPO. So May 1st through 3rd, am I getting that right, Alex? In Delavan, Wisconsin at the Lake Lawn Resort, there's going to be a fantastic conference. My father, my sister, my brother, and Alex will be there. I cannot be there because I will have a freshly born baby of about 2 weeks old at the time, and it's just too much for me to go. But don't stress because Alex will be there and, the rest of my family. It's going to be a good time. There's a lot of other amazing presenters there. There's going to be 4 sky watches, by the way. 3 of them are open to everybody who purchases that tier of tickets, and one of them is going to be private, where people are bused to an exclusive, very legendary paranormal hotspot location, by the way. It is sold out. And with our giveaway on Instagram, there is an opportunity for 3 lucky souls to win a ticket to the VIP private Skywatch. There's going to be like 30 presenters. There's 4 conference rooms going simultaneously with presentations going on while workshops are being done. People are going to be selling really cool stuff, books, merchandise, crystals, doing sound baths. It's really a good time. And I very much highly recommend you guys check out Contact Modalities XPO. Can you hit them with a website, Alex?
contactmodalitiesxpo.com.
Awesome. All right. Well, Paul, I'm sorry to have to make you wait through that.
No worries.
It's so good to see you, man. How have you been?
Yeah, it's good to see you too. I've been great. Been busy, which is always a good thing. And there's a lot going on at Monroe these days. Over the course of my time at Monroe, this is really pretty unique in terms of how much things are just happening in general. Just a lot of opportunities coming our way, which is just so fantastic. So it's very exciting. Good to be busy.
Yes. And I just have to comment on that I think that right now, Monroe is hotter than it's ever been. It feels like it's just exploding.
Yeah, it really is. I think that's true. I mean, when we look back historically at where Monroe has been, since the early days, since the 70s, it's never been like this. And we have people at Monroe who have been on staff for like 30 years. And we are definitely in unique territory here. The fact that we have basically sold out almost all of our campus capacity already for this year as of like January, that's like never, ever, even been close to happening. 10 or 15 years ago, it was often a struggle just to fill programs and keep things going. And it's just so rewarding to see that we're in such a different place right now. And I think it's a combination of things. I think it's obviously a lot of effort, intention on our side, intentionally trying to really get this out to the world in a big way. But it's also, I think, just sort of indicative of what's happening in general. I think people are seeing what's going on in the world, and I think people are ready for, something more. They're ready for a deeper understanding of, kind of who we are and why we're here. So it's just, it's great to see that all coming together.
Yeah, it's honestly so true. It's like, you're right that so many people now are seeking something more. They're seeking something profound in a way to connect with themselves, to connect with, the other side, so to speak. Whatever it is that people are looking for, it feels like, they find a piece of that at Monroe. I don't know if that makes sense, but it opens so many doors for so many people. And I appreciate that about it.
Yeah, I do too. And I think speaking just from my own experience, and I know I'm not unique in saying this, the experiences that I've had at Monroe and kind of on my own as well have just changed, the way that I approach life. I mean, when we get to the core of what Monroe is all about, and it's about giving people this direct experience that we're more than physical. And when you have that experience and it's your own experience, it really changes the way that you approach things. It kind of changes your value system. It changes what you think is important, changes your understanding of why we might be here, having this sort of physical experience. But it's such a profound shift. And, again, that happens to a lot of people. So it's, I think we're just so ready for this kind of thing because we're in this society today and, we see how things are going and we're we're always kind of told that, physical reality is all there is, like science will tell us that. And consciousness is just the byproduct of your brain. And when that's the case, it sort of leads us to where we are. You think of physical is all there is, and we're just kind of here by accident. Well, it's survival of the fittest. It's me versus you and us versus everyone else. And we're all just here fighting with each other for survival, and resources or whatever it is. When you realize that you're more than physical, it just changes the whole perspective on this experience. And you tend to move towards, seeing others as a part of yourself. If we're all part of this single field of consciousness, it means fundamentally we're all part of the same thing. And it's not me versus you. It's how can we sort of work together? It's how can we kind of treat each other with love and compassion instead of just, everything that's going on in the world today. So again, for me, I can't understate how significant that change has been and that shift has been for me.
Same, I would say. And so it's been 2 years this June. Yeah, it was June that I went to the, I believe it was the first ever Creator Gateway. And that's where we met, just for, the listeners' knowledge. And it was obviously for me, like whoever is listening to this show, they know that it was a profound, life-changing experience for me. But really, Paul, what I'm finding with the Monroe experience is I'm getting more programs under my belt experientially and running outreach programs. And you know what they say? It's like to teach is to learn twice,
For sure.
And you run the programs and then you hear all the feedback from the people. And then coupled with, this is a little unique. Most people aren't in the trainer position, but with the training of how to be able to guide people through this. Long story short, I feel like I've had a very intimate connection with the experience over the last 2 years that has so profoundly changed my life. And I will say that going through not only the program experientially, but through the training to become a trainer, because what does that entail, right? It's being in close contact with this on the daily.
Right. Yeah. And really getting deeply immersed in, kind of the content and the history and the methodology.
Right. Right. It has truly changed my life. I feel like this whole process has informed how I, in a lot of ways, view how I present myself to the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
And I've learned that the greatest part of the Monroe experience is not even the week that you're there. That's fantastic, but it's the rest of your life after,
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah. It's as people come through programs, when you go through this kind of shift in your belief system and your values, it leads to a lot of change. Like a lot of people find they realize, they didn't want to be in that job, forever, or they want to do something that they feel is more aligned to, kind of what they want to do and how they want to contribute to the world. And I think, again, that's just such a great thing for society to find a way, for people to find what their true passion is and really be able to kind of pursue that. I think is, just a really, kind of special gift.
Something I think that should not be understated and is such a profound part of the Monroe. This is just my words. It's obviously like not official Monroe words, but I say like the Monroe system or the Monroe process or whatever.
Yeah, process, sure. Yeah.
Process, something that's so powerful about it. And one of the reasons I think that it's so prolific in the world today is because we're talking about experiential universal truth, but very strictly from a lens of non-dogma.
Yeah.
And I think this has allowed it to become what it is today, with a notion of being approachable by all. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Yeah. And I think, being non-dogmatic, I think is one of the things that makes Monroe pretty unique because, the things that we're talking about that were more than physical, like that's not a new idea, that's been around forever in all kinds of religions. But I think, what to me is different about Monroe is we're giving people, like in the past, whatever, 1,000 years ago, I mean, we had religions telling us this. And if you were a yogi and could spend, 10 years in a cave, you could attain these states and kind of find these things out for yourself. But what Monroe does is kind of put those experiences within reach of anyone, kind of giving people access to these states of awareness that otherwise you'd have to spend years meditating to reach. And that to me, I think is something really unique about this time, in human history. We've never really been there. I mean, there have been plant medicines as well, and those certainly help people access these states. But generally, like those kinds of things, I think there are people who embrace that sort of thing, but it's not really like like I wouldn't give that to my parents, right? I mean, there are certain people that just don't want to go down the plant medicine route, whereas putting on headphones is something that, I mean, we all do all the time. Anyone can do that. And it's a different kind of experience too. It's more, when you're using what we're providing, it's more controlled. It's less like you're strapped on a rocket ship and being blasted into another reality. And it's more like, you're navigating your way into these states of awareness. And it's much more in control, and you can just stop at any time. It's not like you're just along for a ride and whatever happens, and, hopefully it's good.
Yeah. And that's so true. Like I wrote in my own journal the first time I did the Gateway Voyage, 2 or 3 times felt like DMT. And the only reason I know that is because I've experienced DMT before. But it wasn't in the scary sense of like, like you said, being blasted off a rocket ship, but it was in that sense of dissolving from ordinary consciousness and then going into an expanded experience. The only thing that my frame of reference could compare it to was that. Point being, it's profound. And and I think that Monroe serves as an example of the pinnacle of like Western culture, the good parts of Western culture, how we like to codify things, scientific lens. We're talking about things that are intimately very, we can say consciousness based, spiritual, whatever, weird, whatever people want to say to classify that. And I think what Monroe does so well, and the genius of the system, is very efficiently and intimately codifying the process for, like you said, like, well, I wouldn't want to give my elderly father ayahuasca, put on these headphones. But the power is in the human mind. So it's just so effective. It's honestly mind blowing. I could sit here for an hour, and I don't want to waste your time. I could sit here for an hour and I could nerd out to you about why it's so amazing. And I'm always trying to slip it into my show every little chance that I get. So,
I think, the other thing too, that a lot of people find is the quality of the experience is different as well. Like when you're, in a DMT experience, a lot of times you may be experiencing something that is, truly profound, but it's like your awareness and your state of mind is so far away from kind of normal that sometimes it's hard to bring those experiences back. A lot of people feel like they're kind of like, they're not quite themselves when they're in that DMT experience. Like it's so deep, your ego dissolves, and you're just in such a drastically different kind of state of awareness that it's often hard to bring something back meaningful from that. I mean, it does happen, but certainly, it can be a challenge. Whereas, at least in my experience and what I've, as I've talked to people, when you go to these states, again, intentionally on your own through this deep meditation, that kind of we allow through the technology, and I'm speaking from my own experience, when I'm in those states, I'm me. Like my awareness, it feels like this, like I can be in an environment that is every bit as real as what this is now, but I know that my body's in bed and I'm experiencing some completely immersive, realer than real kind of reality. And I'm exactly as I'm now. I still have my thought processes. I'm still totally who I am. And that to me is just mind blowing. Like that, the first time I had experiences like that, there's no going back. It made me realize that if this non-physical reality can feel as real as this, well, it sort of, helps me understand that this reality, a lot of people think this isn't kind of the base reality. In other words, like consciousness is the fundamental reality. And this is kind of this virtual reality that we experience together to have this physical experience. But it proved to me that the richness of this physical environment is not unique. There's a richness to other non-physical environments that can feel every bit as real as this. And that I think is just totally interesting.
That's so true. That's a great point. I never even compared it to that or made that mental connection. But for example, I had a few experiences at Gateway, and of course I just want to give disclaimers for the listeners who haven't enjoyed the process yet. Obviously it's different for everyone, and everyone has their own unique things that unfold. But for me, I had an experience where it's like I was in ancient Egypt, or I was with Native Americans thousands of years ago. Temporal displacements where, I feel as if I'm in the past. But even then, I knew it was me, and I was thinking about how it relates to me now, Whereas, like you said,
Yeah.
when you do some sort of substance, there's like that dissolution of the ego. And like, when you smoke DMT or something like that, you have no clue who you are, and you have a hard time integrating a lot of these things until after the fact. So that's a good point. I never thought about that. And then the other thing that I want to add to that, why I love the Monroe system so much. I do have a psychology degree, and I wouldn't say that I'm scientifically minded by any stretch, but I would say that I'm very logically and like a lot of times left brain. I have to understand how things work, and I have to understand the why and the how and all this stuff. And it scratches all of those itches. I mean, as you know, there's so many scientists that get involved and they're just mind blown, and they're like, "Oh my God, I understand. There's a process here in the brain." But beyond that, beyond all those barriers of proof that people typically need to understand something and engage with something, the most important part, I feel, is the empowerment methods learned in the program to be able to, or any of the programs, really, all of them, to be able to switch through the states effortlessly.
Yeah.
Coming from someone who devoted all of my university years to psychology and studying the brain and the mind and how these models work and the neurology and all that stuff, and then having left the Monroe Institute, it just completely changed my outlook on what I thought I understood about the human mind.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
And
what's cool, the experiences you're talking about where you're kind of seeing, potentially these past life experiences, those are really interesting too, because, when that happens to me, it's like you get a different, what you think of as you is different, right? If you think of you as just like, this is all I am, this is all I ever will be, and when I die, that's the end of me. When you know through that direct experience that that's not true, what you think of as yourself changes. Now you realize, well, there's a you that is all those things. Like you've had all these different lifetimes, and there's this bigger kind of story arc of you as consciousness, having these different experiences, living these different lifetimes, for the purpose of your own evolution. So like your whole sense of self really expands to something much broader and bigger than it is now. And it's like you can put this life experience in a perspective that you couldn't otherwise. Like if you say, okay, well, maybe this life is one of, 100 or 1,000, who knows, what am I here to do in this lifetime? Like, what can I learn from this? And when you approach it as like this learning kind of experience in this, broader definition of who you are, again, it just changes the way that you approach things. Like you may decide, it's not about just, kind of acquiring a whole bunch of material things. Like that can't be why I'm here. If I have this broader vision or this broader understanding of myself, and I have these multiple experiences, the goal can't be to just acquire a bunch of stuff that you're just going to get rid of at the end of your life experience anyway. So again, the things that are important to you and the kinds of experiences that you seek or the things that you value in life, that to me changed a lot. I started to value experiences and relationships more than, things. Like I can learn from experiences. I can learn from relationships. Having a bunch of stuff is kind of meaningless at the end of the day. Again, in this context of having these multiple life experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's profound. I've had similar, realizations myself. I mean, I think it hits every one of us differently because, it's like, my words, not Monroe's, but it's like we all have that different karma, the things that we have to figure out. But like for me, one of the most valuable things that I realized let me just explain it like this. So I grew up with a dad who was more or less like known around the world for exhibiting psychic abilities and things like that. So me personally, I grew up with a complex thinking that, well, surely that's not me. I don't have anything like this or anything going on. And like, I went to my Gateway and did an intake interview. I'm not sure if they do that at every Gateway. My group was a little different.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And in my interview, Maya, wonderful human being, wonderful trainer. She was like, what's your intention? What do you want out of this? And I was just like, I'm just here to experience and to learn. Because I called my dad, I called my sister, and both of them, had already been to Monroe a couple of times, like through the History Channel and other things. And I was like, what should I know going into this? And both of them were just like, you should humble yourself because you're going to a place of learning and just be open. And I was like, okay. So I told Maya, I was like, I'm open. I don't know what to experience. I personally don't believe that I can go out of body or anything like that, but I'm open to it. And, that's not why I'm here. I'm just here to have a good time and to learn. And by the end of the week, things happen for me. People can hear that on my 3-part series, but a lot of things happen for me that were for me enough to have that shift in my understanding of me, and I was forever changed to where now, I don't even know the words for this, where I'll just be laying in bed and it's like, I'll go out of body or something will happen that it's like unprompted. And, and it's good. It's positive. It's something that I enjoy and that I was seeking. But the point is, it's like that complex was dissolved. Something that throughout my life I struggled with so bad. I'm not special. I don't have abilities. I can't do this. I can't do that. Went there for a week, experienced it for myself, and I was forever altered. And like, the sky's the limit. Now I'm just like, well, I want to learn about this. I want to learn about this. This is possible. You can do this too. Now I want to help people do it too. And, be a trainer. And I know that's not the experience for everybody, but.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, it's, it is, again, I think we've been saying the same thing. It really does change you. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I'm curious, like, about your journey becoming your role for the Institute, chief technology officer and executive vice president, because that's incredible. And I did an episode with Alan and we went on into all that and heard her story, but I'd like to kind of hear your story, like how you got to be where you are.
Yeah, sure. Well, I could say I've always kind of been a seeker. Even as a child, I think I was always interested in kind of the paranormal. In my teens, deeply interested in like remote viewing and like, UFOs, at the time is what we called them. And so like all those things were really interesting to me. And I always felt like that's where we really learn something. Like all those things that we can't explain and don't understand, like that's where the real learning, can take place, because it's, we don't have explanations for these things. So I've always been interested in all of that stuff. And I didn't feel like religion gave me the answers I was looking for. It's great. I mean, for many people, it really, is very helpful. And it, if it helps you be a better person, that's fantastic. I mean, there's nothing wrong with religion. But for me, I didn't find, the answers. And I'm very left-brained. I ended up getting into software engineering. So I always wanted to know, like, well, why does it work that way? Or how does it work? And I didn't find a lot of those answers, going down that path. So always been interested in this stuff. And I think I first read, I was really interested in remote viewing. And then I remember reading, I forget which book it was, but they were talking about some of the remote viewers went to the Monroe Institute to learn how to become remote viewers. I was like, wow, that's amazing. So then from there, I kind of got into, Bob Monroe's books and read those probably in my late teens, early 20s. And that just blew my mind. To me, I couldn't imagine like why this wasn't like news. Like why is everyone not talking about this? Like this is so, like, to know that you can leave your body, it just violates everything we think we know about physics and how our bodies and consciousness works. I just thought it was like the most important thing ever. And I kind of dabbled in remote viewing at the time and kind of got into trying some of the out of body stuff, but I didn't have the resources at the time to like buy the CDs and really kind of do it that way. So that kind of continued. And then I got into kind of career and family and got busy with that stuff. And I started my career, I was software engineering. That was my whole career. So I started in like big corporate IT, and then left that and started getting into startups. So I did a series of startups, either kind of as a founder or as CTO. And it was then when I had the time and energy to kind of really get back into this whole consciousness thing. It was kind of on the side for a while. And I decided, like, I really want to know if what this, what Bob Monroe is talking about is like legit, if that's real. So I decided, like, I'm going to try to do this, and I got the exercises to take, the CDs, and started working my way through it. So I would do, like, work through the Gateway experience and do like one exercise every day, and I kept doing that for months. And I would kind of go back and repeat things, and I kind of really tried to get into it. And I was trying so hard to have the experience that Bob wrote about. So like, and it's so funny because I was just getting in my own way. Like, so I know this now. Hold on, let me get it back here.
Oh, good idea. I'll join
I
you.
was just getting in my own way, with all of these expectations and expecting to like peel out of my body. And every time something happened, I'm like, oh, am I going out? Like, am I peeling out? I was just analyzing the experience the entire time. And that's like the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
That just blocks it. So anyway, that I was doing these during the day, and then nothing was happening when I was doing the exercises. But what started happening to me at night was that's when I'd have these experiences. And for me, it started with lucid dreams. Like I just would spontaneously find myself aware in this dream environment. And, again, like feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm in this dream environment. I know that it's a dream, but it's like, it's every bit as real as waking reality. And it almost kind of like feels more real. And so that's where it began for me. And then from there, I just kind of got deeper into that and continued, kind of exploring those experiences. And I ended up having a lot of the classic peel out of your body experiences. But for me, a lot of the most interesting experiences were, through, I think what Bob would call phasing. Like when Bob talked about his early efforts, it was the physical, like I'm peeling out of my body, I stand next to myself, I go fly over somewhere else. And then later, in his explorations, he talked about this phasing model where it's like you're kind of turning off you're tuning the dial on a radio. Like it's my awareness is here, and then my awareness can be there. So for me, it started manifesting as like I'd be lying in bed, I'm going to sleep and I'm aware, and then I see like a scene kind of forming, and then I'm just kind of like it's almost like teleporting. Like the scene starts to build. And I go from like being awake in my bed to like now just being immersed in this alternate reality in this scene. And those kinds of experiences, again, just blew me away because it was literally like just teleporting from my bed into like a whole nother reality, which was really cool. And so again, I just exploring those things. I mean, all kinds of experience. I journaled them for a long time. I've stopped journaling at this point. But all kinds of stuff that proved to me beyond any doubt that I was more than physical and that the things that I were experiencing, had some reality to them. And I think one of the most interesting and kind of verifying experiences for me was we were on vacation at the time, and I had two daughters at this point, and we were together in a room. We were on vacation, so sleeping all in the same room. And I had this really amazing experience where I ended up being in this like tropical kind of like water environment. So I'm in this tropical environment and I'm swimming under the water while kind of flying. So I'm kind of flying around under the water and checking things out and seeing kind of like coral and whatever animals are there. And then out of nowhere, this dolphin comes like swimming up next to me. And I'm like, oh, cool, a dolphin. So I'm kind of flying around and this dolphin is swimming next to me. And I'm just, doing whatever, having a good time. This dolphin is really sticking with me, like right next to my side. And this experience goes on for a while. And then eventually I kind of come out of it and I come right from that experience, which is typically happens to me. I come right from that experience. And then like my awareness starts to shift back to my body. And then like, oh, okay, now I'm back. And it just kind of transitions, right back to being in the bed. And it was the morning. So I wake up in the morning and I get up, I kind of sit up in bed, and my daughter's there, in the room, and she kind of gets up at the same time. And I said, hey, how's it going? I just had this really awesome dream. And she said, oh my God, I had this amazing dream where I was a dolphin and we were together and I was swimming next to you and we were doing all these things underwater. And like, we had a shared experience. There's no doubt in my mind. And she was like 6 or so at the time. So it's not like she would just make up this kind of thing. We were there and we had an experience together and we woke up from it at the same time.
Wow.
And kind of told each other about this experience. So like that was one of the experiences that kind of sealed the deal for me. Like there's no way that was just some kind of coincidence. Like there is a reality to these non-physical experiences.
That's deep.
Yeah. So that like set me, as I've had a number of these experiences now, like that just set me on a different path. And so kind of doing a series of startups. And at the end of the last startup that I was working on, my wife and I decided we were ready to do something different. And we sold everything that we own and we moved onto a sailboat and homeschooled our 2 girls. And our intention was to do this kind of as a sabbatical for like a year. And it ended up being 4 years. So for 4 years, we lived on this sailboat, mostly in the Bahamas. We'd spend like 8 months of the year kind of sailing around the Bahamas and then come back to Florida for hurricane season. And during that time, I took some time off. I didn't work for 2 of those years. And then I was doing some consulting during that time as well. But coming out of that, this is getting back to the Monroe story. Coming out of that, I realized with all of the experiences that I've had and the way that I kind of think about my experience here, I couldn't just go back to like a normal, like, oh, let's go do another startup or let's go work, at a fintech company or something. Like it had no appeal to me, like whatsoever. So I knew I had to do something that I really believed in. And during COVID, we were actually on the boat during COVID when the lockdowns happened. I started working on this kind of side project that was a kind of a pay it forward fundraising platform. So you'd like perform acts of kindness for people and you could donate to charity to thank someone for doing that. And I approached Monroe as one of the charities. I was like, oh, Monroe's great. So I approached them, and that began the conversation with Monroe, because as I started talking with the folks there, that was at a time when, again, kind of mid-pandemic, campus had been shut down and they were trying to figure out, like, how do we take what we do in these residential retreats and bring that online, bring that to people in a different way. And there wasn't really anyone on the staff at the time who had a deep technology background. So it was like perfect timing. I started there just kind of consulting first to help them formulate a strategy around how to use technology to really kind of over the mission. And it grew from there. We kind of created this vision for the Expand app. That was kind of one of the first big things that we really focused on. And then we kind of went to the board, got approval. We went out and we fundraised for it and had a donor on the spot, gave us $1 million to basically go after, building this app and starting this whole growth initiative. And that's where it began. So I came on, from a technology standpoint. And then my role has kind of expanded since then. So now I focus on our overall kind of growth strategy. So I oversee marketing and fundraising, as well as like some of our strategic partnerships and collaborations. So now, I get to focus on like, how do we get this out there? Like, that's the most exciting thing to me, is like, how do we help more people have these experiences that change their worldview, change their value system. And so, that's what we've been doing ever since. And it's been a crazy ride. I mean, it's been incredibly personally rewarding, I think, is probably, obviously the part that kind of sticks with me. I feel, privileged and lucky that I get to help people have this kind of experience and see this kind of shift in their own lives. And that's been amazing.
I feel the same way. And you just hit a lot of really amazing points that I naturally was wanting to bring up at certain times so we can address them. But
sure, yeah.
Something you talked about that was really amazing was the radio dial, because I think from the outside looking in, just imagine the most ordinary person at home. They read on the internet about out of body. They've never like tried or anything. And they're like, oh, in their head, they have probably this picture of like, you're either in your body or you're out. And it's like, Casper, he goes through the wall, but it's really not like that. It's a lot more complex. Right. And it's like what Paul described. And everything Paul was describing is how it happens to me too, where it's like you just kind of fade out and the scene builds and then it's just like you're there. And it could be that, or it could be the other thing, or it could be, you're seeing from 3 perspectives at once in different locations, bilocation, trilocation. It's such a complex phenomenon that like, I think it's worth deep study and exploration. And, it's fascinating. It's mind-boggling. That's a hard word. That's boggling. It's mind-boggling to see how complex it really is, that it's not just, what we think it is, that it's more, Yeah,
that's a great point. I mean, consciousness, you think of this larger kind of reality where consciousness is fundamental and you've got all these different kind of experiences we can have. It's an incredibly rich, kind of environment, I guess you could call it there. And I think so much of it, when you like, we're here in this physical reality, and like the way that we measure things is like, everything is objective. Like you and I have if we're sitting in the room together, we have exactly the same experience. Like we agree, like there's a table here and there's a light there, and like whatever there is, like it's very strictly objective. Like there isn't really any difference. So what you see is what I see. In my experience, when you get into the non-physical, that same kind of strict objectivity doesn't quite exist. So like, that's why it can be different for everybody. So like, we may be in the same place in the non-physical, and you might experience it as, like a warehouse. And for me, it's like, something a little different. It's like a storage room in a building or something like that. But so it's like, we can experience the same thing and be in the same place, but there's a lot more subjectivity in this environment because you're in the non-physical, like you're in this thought responsive environment. So
Yeah.
your mindset, your beliefs, and your thoughts, I think, play a much bigger role in shaping what that reality looks like. And it's fascinating. Like I love getting deep into this because I'm a technologist. So I kind of think of consciousness as a technology and try to kind of tease out, like, how does this technology work? Like how's it all put together? I find it really fascinating.
We just did an episode on the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And
oh yeah,
I'm not sure, like, have you read it or are you familiar with the concept?
I have. I think I got through most of it. I can't remember if I finished it.
I just threw it on YouTube and listened. Right. But, no, it's very fascinating because it's like what you're describing, you said it's thought responsive. The whole Tibetan Book of the Dead thing, for example, is like, when you die and you go into the Bardo layers, that things that you experience are projections from your thought. And I thought that was very cool that there was parallels there to so many other things, including like Robert Monroe's experience and so many others going into these non-physical realities. And, I like that word thought responsive. I'll start using that. But yeah, it's crazy. I almost feel like we're in the same location. Maybe for you, it's a warehouse. Maybe for me, it's a park or a club or something. But it's maybe because that thought form is a response that would be comfortable for me, or it comes from me or whatever. It's not so objective. But then when you were saying that, I had the thought, even if we are in the physical reality and we're sitting in the same room and we watch a movie, did we have the same objective experience? Maybe not, because maybe I was sad and you were happy, maybe I don't know.
Things like the Mandela effect where, it's interesting. There's a lot of, I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff swirling around about the whole Mandela effect thing, but you could say, maybe that is literally people are having different experiences, because there is multiple versions of this reality. Who knows? But it's interesting that there are parallels in that in the non-physical. So like if the non-physical works that way, that there can be subjectivity, even though you're kind of in the subjective real place. Maybe this reality is just kind of a subset of that. And maybe sometimes that underlying structure like leaks through into this reality. We start to see, some of that kind of behavior. Yeah. Who knows?
That's fascinating. There are quantum physics studies, experiments, whatever you want to call them, coming out now that are suggesting that behavior in the present can alter experiences and memories of the past, which is actually, as something that can happen during Monroe Institute programs. My sister experienced it. I've experienced it. People in my outreach program this month, or no, it was in January. My most recent program, they experienced it, where you can have some sort of experience in an expanded state that more or less like changes your, I don't know how to say it eloquently, but like changes your emotional response to old memory patterns and traumatic events and things. And it's like, I don't think we're anywhere close to understanding how this stuff works. It's so profound. It's so amazing. And then the other point that you brought up, when you were telling your story about how you got into this position, and it's kind of like one of the most important things that I wanted to talk about tonight, was you were explaining that in the early days of beginning your process with the Monroe programs that you were listening to the CDs through the waves.
Yeah.
And then you were talking about how during COVID, you came in and you were more or less consulting, how do we expand this to where we can still operate during the pandemic? And naturally, you guys moved into virtual programs.
Yep.
Well, now as I understand it, there's something new that is a part of the Monroe Institute experience that I really think is so profound and so amazing. And I think you know what I'm talking about.
I do. Yep. Yeah, we have just launched our Gateway online self-guided, like video-based program. So this is a bit of a new direction. We've done this online before, like that's not new. But what's new about this is a couple of things. One, it's truly self-guided. So it's video instruction, and we've got, Alan and Luigi, two of our best trainers who have basically kind of, put this video together. And what's also interesting about it is it's based on the residential gateway experience. This is also new. This has never been done before. So it's the same exercises in the same format as you get in the residential Gateway. Like when you buy the Wave CDs, that was created to be kind of a commercial product. It's a bit of a different kind of flow, same focus levels, but in a different format. So it is Gateway. It's the same thing you do in the residential. It's the same exercises. It's really well guided, and it's, again, self-paced. And that's the key, because it doesn't require any commitment of time. Like we do our virtual programs, which have been great. And that's like you take a week and you do the whole thing during the week, and you're on Zoom like all day. And that's a very deep, intensive experience, which is great. But many people don't have that. Yeah. Many people don't have that kind of time, to put towards it. And being able to do it on your own time is really key. And we're trying to make this available to, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. Like we're really trying to get this into a format that everybody can experience it. The other thing that's really unique about this too is we have remastered all of the original exercises. So we took the exercises that we use in the residential, and using the amazing audio tools we have now, we were able to extract Bob's original voice out of those exercises. So it's Bob's original guidance, still as it is. I'm cleaned up and remastered, and then we've re-implemented all of the rest of it, the signals and the entrainment and all that stuff, using the latest generation of our sound technology, Monroe Sound Science. And this latest generation is very interesting. Since about 2011 or so, like the Monroe Institute has been continually evolving this sound technology. So in the early days, it was binaural beats, and that was kind of everything, and that worked really well. And now, obviously, we've come a long way in terms of like the kinds of audio technology we have in production. We've also come a very long way in our understanding of the brain and brain waves and how this all works. So the latest generation of the technology is based on this 3D format. This is really exciting because when we're working in this 3D format, and it's a format called Dolby Atmos, you might see it on Netflix. It's kind of a format that was made to really accurately reproduce three-dimensional sound. And we mix it down into headphones so that you actually get this virtual 3D environment. We have an entrainment signal technique that's fundamentally based in this 3D environment that's pretty new. So the signals themselves that are doing the brainwave entrainment are moving in this 3D space. And one of the things that makes entrainment really effective is preventing habituation. So like when you just listen to a binaural beat on YouTube and it's just like a steady, thing forever, you start to habituate to it. Your brain is really good at picking out the signal from the noise. And when things get monotonous, your brain tends to just dismiss it as just nothing interesting, nothing new going on there. So in this format, as we have these signals kind of moving around, they're always attracting your attention kind of subconsciously. Our brains are wired to really pay attention to sounds that sound like they're moving around us in 3D. It's like a biological mechanism, that has evolved to help us understand when there might be threats around us or things that we need to pay attention to. So we're kind of playing on that evolutionary bias so that we're helping your brain pay attention to the signals. So that's one thing that's exciting about this. The other thing that's exciting is when we're working in this 3D space, and we don't have a whole lot of this in Gateway, but in other exercises, we can craft a very convincing environment in sound. So if we do something like with a nature soundscape, where we put you in like a park, and we're really trying to build this experience of being in this environment, the more convincing we can make that sound, that environment, from a sound perspective, the easier it is for you to kind of really embrace it as real, and kind of, move your awareness away from the physical and more easily project your awareness into this very real environment that sounds like it's like the real physical world. So the more immersive and the more realistic we can create this alternate reality that we're creating in sound, the easier it is for you to project your awareness into it and kind of recognize it as a real place that you can kind of, move your awareness to. So that technology aspect, I think, is really interesting about the new Gateway Online.
Yeah. And
sorry. I was just going to say, the last thing I'll mention too is the price point, because that's important too.
Yeah.
Obviously our residential and virtual programs, I mean, they're priced the way they are. And believe it or not, there's not like a huge margin in there. Obviously, it takes a lot to run the campus. I mean, everything is priced to try to make it accessible, but still they're expensive. with Gateway Online, this new version, we're targeting at lower price points. So $5.95 is kind of the list price. We're also doing things with scholarships. We're really trying to figure out how can we get this out there, again, in a way that's accessible. So make it affordable, make it easy to use on your own time. That is, kind of an important future for us as we try to reach, millions of people with this experience.
So I just want to elaborate on that. Again, Paul is in a different position than me, who, Paul's whole world is living and breathing Monroe for a number of years. And for me, it's new and I'm fresh. And, so we can kind of talk about things differently. But like for me, I would tell you honestly, Paul is not pinching me under the table to say this. He's not even here. I'm just telling you, like, honestly. And yes, even though I went for free my first time as a content creator, I have paid to do other programs, people. So I'm telling the truth. It's worth every penny. It's no different than, going on a vacation to a resort somewhere or something of that nature. And just to give you a little bit of defense there.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll just add too, like when you go to the campus, there is something magical there. And I think it's like, that campus has been there for, whatever, 30, 40 years, 50 years. Yeah. All of those tens of thousands of people, like having those experiences in that place, like it really seems like there's an energetic imprint there where like, again, that mass of people they're having these experiences, like there's some magic.
And the crystal
there's definitely
too.
Magic there. Yeah. I've got the crystals. Yep. Two crystals.
There's 2 7-foot crystals. I feel as if they're just like amplifying this energy. I mean, it really does feel like, it's a magical place. There's an energy there. And that's not crazy. I mean, it's no different than like fairy circles in Ireland or England or Stonehenge or the pyramids. Right. This is a thing. This is a real phenomenon. It's actually called the field effect, where when you enter a certain location that has a certain vibrational resonance, that it can have an effect on your consciousness. That's not woo-woo. Sure. That is totally a thing. But I just wanted to give, the Institute a little bit of defense that, yeah, the program is pricey, but it's worth every penny. There's a whole team of people that work behind the scenes to make this thing flow. But what's so profound about this new completely self-guided virtual gateway that's coming out is people have to understand that this institute has almost been in operation for 50 years now. It's been since 1971 it was incorporated. 71. And there are only 2 campuses. I mean, it's one campus, but there's 2 buildings where people take classes. So you have to understand, at a week program, there is only potential for like less than 40 people at a time to do a program. And we're talking millions over 50 years. The sheer capacity and limit that the Monroe Institute has been throttled by, and still the amount of work that it has contributed to the masses is insane. But this new program that's opening for a fraction of the price, by the way, it's going to unleash the floodgates of what is possible. And
that's what we hope.
I know it, and it's going to do so well, and it's a fraction of the price, but the same profound program experience. So I truly feel so optimistic and hopeful about this. It's just going to like unleash the potential into the world. And I will tell you this, Paul. I don't know if I've ever had the opportunity to tell you this. When I went to the Monroe Institute the first time, I'll give you my brief little version, right? Mm-hmm. So my father went with my sister. I was invited. I chose not to go because I had just started my podcast recently, and I was just like, well, that sounds very cool, but I'm afraid if I go to this place, I don't really know that much about it. I won't be allowed to talk about it publicly. So I'd rather hear you guys do it, and then I'll go next time. And of course, that's not even true, but I didn't know Monroe, so I didn't know what to expect or whatever. Then my dad and my sister went again for the History Channel. And then there was a third time they were supposed to go. And by that time, hearing how they were changed and what they experienced, I was kicking myself in the foot. Like, no, I should have went. I wish I went. That was a mistake. It was like the biggest mistake of my life then, to turn it down, right? And then it was like another year later, 2024, I got the email. I was invited to come talk about it. I turned it down because I was afraid I wouldn't be allowed to talk about it. And I never really told anybody that. And then that's how the universe works. That's how fate works. I was invited because I was a content creator to talk about it. So,
awesome.
that was my experience with it. And I don't really remember why I got on that story. It had something to do with the virtual program, but
right. Yeah. The new Gateway Online.
Yeah. The new Gateway Online. But either way, it was just like, it was profound. And, gosh, it'll come back to me in a minute. Oh, well. Cool. I was telling that for a reason, but it just drifted away.
Yep. Well, that happens, consciousness.
Yeah. But, no, it's amazing what's about to happen with this virtual program. And it's going to, it's just going to change what's possible. It's going to open the floodgates. And I think that, I remember now, Paul. I remember.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when I went the first time, I was invited, to talk about it. So I was like, oh, well, this is cool. I still didn't know what to expect. I just went, like I said, open mind. I'm here to learn. And it was the first day, I think, when the real program begins, not when everybody's traveling and showing up and you're kind of settling in. That's like day one technically, but then day one begins the next day after your first sleep, and it begins, right? And one of the first lessons, they started explaining to us the basically the purpose and the mission statement of the Institute. And it was at that moment that I knew that this was so profound, that the mission statement, I might not be able to quote it verbatim, and you could probably help me with this, but it's essentially to seek to reach 1% of the world to expand global human consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah. It's to reach 1% of the world's population with a direct experience, that helps them know that they're more than physical. So that's kind of the idea. And by direct experience, we mean you put on the headphones and you actually experience expanded awareness. So whether it's through something that we have on YouTube or whatever it is, we've kind of created the mechanism to try to count all the different places where people have those first experiences, whether it's in the Expand app. But that's something we actually track. That 1% is really our driving 10-year goal. It's kind of the overarching goal for Monroe. And that's how we measure our progress, is how many people are we reaching with that new first time experience of expanded awareness that makes them, open their eyes and realize wait a minute, there's something more here. And hopefully starts them down that path of discovery.
I always believed throughout my life that it had to be 50%, that we had to reach 50% of the world. And somehow or another, when just above 50%, see things differently, that the tides would shift and, the world would change. And then when I went to Monroe and you guys were like, no, it's 1%. I thought about it and I said, you know what? I like that better. I can get behind this. And, the rest is history. And I love that. And I love the mission. And I know that it's so genuine, and I consider myself a part of that. I was already on the same mission from a different lens. Yeah. And I do really feel very optimistic and excited and strongly about, the new thing that's coming out, because you guys, it's like you've been slammed at capacity for 50 years, just churning them out. And it was inevitable that something like this had to happen, and the floodgates to be unleashed, to be, available to everybody at an affordable cost. And here's the best part, that, it's self-guided. So if you want to do it over 12 weeks, you do it over 12 weeks.
Right.
If you want to do one exercise a week, do one exercise a week, whatever you want. It's your world now. It's profound.
Yeah. Definitely. Yep. Very exciting.
Yeah.
Looking forward to see how it goes. And we did really extensive beta testing with this. So several months where we had, we've had about 500 people now have already gone through it. And we've gotten tremendous feedback. It's just really well done. And I've been to Gateway a bunch of times. And so as I was watching the videos, it just struck me how well it's explained. And I think, again, we've got two veteran trainers, Alan and Luigi, who have been doing this for many, many years. And I think they just nailed it so well of explaining the process and like, why you do resonant tuning and how that works. And like obviously the focus levels as you go through them. So it's just very exciting. And what I like too, is there's more. So, you go through each exercise and there's kind of a video intro, then you do the exercise and there's a video kind of debrief, so it's structured very much the same way that the residential experience is in that respect. But then there's also like, you've got journaling prompts. So there's other ways that the things that we can do online that to help people engage with it. So you journal, you can get, we've built this sort of AI system that gives you some basic feedback about your journaling based on what other people are saying. So we're really, again, trying to use like all of the technology that's available today to just, make that experience deeper and just help people engage with it more.
That's incredible, man. I'm in the beta. I've been extremely busy and full disclosure. I also, while I was in the beta program, I was, all my bandwidth was towards planning my own, programs and trying to run the outreach programs. But, I signed into it the other day because I was actually speaking with Emily, the marketing director, about getting you on the show. And I was like, oh man, I'm sorry, I didn't get your feedback. So I signed in and I actually saw there were 700 people.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Cause it shows a number. It shows a number when you sign in. So there's like 700 people fleshing out the beta. So, I can't wait to see that happen. Love the Expand app. I use it all the time. It's a very powerful tool, and I'm a big fan of Monroe Sound Science. I've actually had Ignacio Diaz Jr. on the show, and get just nerding out about like the sound and how the technology works. I just really want the people at home to understand how profound this is. And I don't want to put words. I have to delineate because there's two Ryans. There's podcast Ryan, who existed before Monroe, and then there's Monroe Institute Ryan, who exists as a trainer. And I have to respect both systems. So I'm delineating that this is not Monroe Ryan saying this. This is podcast Ryan saying this. And a training, there's a difference in how you communicate things. But podcaster Ryan says that in the ancient past, it could be suggested that what Monroe has perfected in today's world through technology and through the codification of all of these different these expanded states was the whole objective. Whether it was in Tibet or Egypt or Greece or Persia or the Templar Knights or whatever tradition in the ancient past, their whole thing was about, some sort of profound direct experience with the other. And maybe you can elaborate on this, Paul, but there's a very famous story that I feel like they probably tell at all gateways, at least everybody I know that's done it and other programs too. But there's this famous story. I think it was the 90s. There was the story? Do you want to tell it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So this, there was a head of a Buddhist temple. I think he was 91 years old or something like this. And he came to Gateway in the 90s and, went through it. And he said that, people in Gateway were reaching states in 1 week that took him years of sitting in meditation. And that it's funny because that quote ended up being in a Wall Street Journal article in the 90s, which is how we kind of, have it and found it. But, that kind of sums it up really well. Like, it's like you're, again, like these aren't new states, but making them easy for like every person to reach is totally new. Like, I don't feel like there's ever been a point in history where that's been that easily accessible and available. And I think, again, what's so important is like, it gives people a direct experience of the divine and whatever you think is beyond physical. In the past, we relied on, on religions and middlemen and like, okay, the priest is the one who talks to God and, to kind of interpret what's going on. And now it's like, you've got a direct line to get answers. And the other thing that I think is so important about this work when you do this is it's not someone else's answers. And that's a really kind of important thing for me about Monroe is that we don't tell you, like Bob Monroe had his experiences and he wrote about him, but we don't tell you, oh, here's how it all works. And Bob was like this too, from what, people that have been around him, people would ask him questions and, like, why does this happen? Or what should I do? And he said, well, go find out, go experience it for yourself. And that's been kind of the way that Monroe operates ever since is it's not like, we're not here to give you answers. We're here to tell you how to find your answers. And your answers aren't necessarily my answers because my experience is different than yours. So it's a way to find like your personal truth that resonates with you through your own experience. And that I think is so different than what at least I've experienced in any kind of like organized spirituality, context. It's the truth. Like in those cases, there's the truth, and this is the truth that everyone has to kind of embrace and kind of ratify. This is your truth. So that's just beautiful to me.
Yeah, that's something that I love. It's like, go explore. People have questions, and it's like, that's a great question. Go find out.
Yeah.
Go explore.
Right.
You have the tools. So this is what I meant earlier when I said that the Monroe Institute is kind of like the embodiment of peak Western science, taking this profound thing that's out there and some other space, non-physical realities, consciousness, and the spectrum of in and out of the body. It's taking this very bizarre and deep and confusing metaphysical suggestion, and very much through Occam's razor, just narrowing that filter through which we can experience this, where, I don't have to go sit under a tree in India for 30 years or sit by a waterfall in Tibet or, Egyptian temple, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those things are cool. I love talking about those things and studying those things, but this is why I was so blown away by Monroe, because it's truly just so efficient. It's modern. It's to me, one of the things that I experienced in the out of body state was, I was seeing myself in the past in ancient Egypt, and I was being told about things basically in the temple. But in that moment, in that out of body state, it's like information was coming through to me that like, there's really not that much difference between that back then and kind of like what happens at Monroe. Like it's just the difference is you don't need religion. You don't need dogma. It's universal. This is an ability that's a part of your being, your multidimensional nature. And, having grown up very super religious, it's like, well, I thought I had to believe a certain thing to experience this. Well, no, you don't experience things or have abilities or whatever because of what you believe. It's because of who you are and what you are. It's universal.
Right.
And you can experience this, and you can explore parts of yourself, and you can still believe those things if you want to. That's great. You know what I mean? So it opened a lot of doors for me, the Monroe Institute process and just everything about it, diving into the culture, the knowledge, becoming a trainer, devoting my life to the process. It's been good for me. So no complaints.
Yeah. That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that you feel like is left on your heart, or do you feel pretty much at peace with where we're at? 'Cause I think we hit all the things I wanted to hit.
Yeah. I'm feeling good. I think, we've covered a lot of ground. I think, it's been a great conversation. Yeah. Really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Well, guys, before we wrap, thank you for listening. Please, I encourage you to look into all the things that we've discussed. I am actually building an outreach website, a website where I can do my programs, but I'll focus on that later when it's finished. For now, I want you guys where could they find the app?
Just go to the Monroe website and it'll be there. We've got a new homepage as well. So, the homepage makes it easier to find Gateway. So from the homepage, you'll see Gateway, and then you just get right to it.
Okay. So just to be clear, the new experience, the self-guided virtual with all the videos, it's not on the Expand app. It's on the Monroe Institute website.
Correct. Yeah, actually, that's a good point. So right now, this is kind of a two-phase approach. So right now, it's on the website, and the way that you take the course is through the web. Now, you can use your mobile, and it all works there as well, but it's not built into the Expand app yet. But it is going to be coming, and that's going to be kind of the phase two. Like for now, we'll get it live and get people going on the website, and then we'll integrate it, more deeply into the Expand app in the future.
Amazing. So and I have been authorized to tell you guys that for the first 2 weeks after launch, you guys will be getting a discount with code BSS, all caps, BSS. So enjoy your discount. Go have fun. Go explore. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. Paul, thank you so much. It's been an honor. I look forward to connecting with you guys soon. And we love you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Great. Thank you for having me.